What prompted you to make Aliyah?
I was brought up with Israel. I was brought up,
Your parents were Zionists?
to say the least, yeah.
Do they live here?
They did. They went back.
Is that right?
It was a hard story here, but we were brought up with Israel, with the love of Israel, which was crazy. So when my mother, I remember she made her first trip when I was 15, when I just turned 15. She came here for 2 weeks alone. My father always wanted to move here. She came here. She came back. I remember picking her up at JFK Airport. And one of the first things she said when we got in the car, she said, "We're moving."
Wow.
A few months after that, it was I got on my first plane ride, and it was to Israel to move, not to visit. And I never forget what at landing. You know how you've been traveling around a long time, and then you go back to your own bed, and you feel it's like you're in your bed.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I felt.
Is that right?
I got off the plane. I never forget it. It was mind blowing.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Marc Prowisor, originally from Philadelphia, but made Aliyah in 1978. And you're just hearing about his story with his mother's first trip to Israel, now his first trip to Israel, but you've been living here 15 years.
I've been living in Shiloh 15 years. I've been in Israel 30, I guess we're coming on 32 years soon.
Is that right?
Yeah, I got.
And what's the difference between living in other parts of Israel and living in Shiloh?
I don't think there's a difference really in living in other parts. It's all one land. We personally really love Shiloh. We were living in Jerusalem, and I'm not really a city person. And we started traveling around to different places to see where we fit in and everything. And we spent the Shabbat here in Shiloh, and we saw the children, the teenagers and everything. And we were very new at the children thing. We only had one at the time. And there was something very special. And we said to ourselves, that's what we want. We want to see our children grow up with these values, this air, this atmosphere. And that's what prompted us to move here. And it's great.
But you know something, though? In talking to other Israelis in the land, some of them were concerned that we were even coming to Shiloh.
Why?
And they said they wouldn't travel here, and yet you're living here. So to me, as just a Canadian, it would seem that there must be a difference. And it seems to me that reading the newspapers back in Canada, they're even saying that you're not supposed to be building houses around this area.
Well, that's because they simply don't understand the reality. But regarding the fact that people were afraid, let's say, lately, obviously, since the Intifada and since Oslo, really, let's take it back to when it really started.
To 1993.
1993, because prior to 93, this area, it was so quiet. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's when a lot of the violence started happening. Obviously, starting really peaking out at 2000, and this area became one of the most violent areas, if you will, in Israel. And we were talking about 1 to 2 shooting attacks a day. I was in charge of security for the region back then, and not a pretty time. And today, mind you, we've been seeing a resurgence lately. We're talking about stonings every day. We had a shooting about a little over a week and a half ago. We've had a few of the events here. But again, everything in proportion. I mean, everywhere you go, you have a danger. I mean, you go to the south, they're having Qassams. You go to the north, they're having their rockets. Here we're having, let's say, on our roads. But not just here, but in the world. You go there in neighborhoods that I won't go to in New York, I mean, in my travels and so on. Everywhere has its own danger. And it's not necessarily, there's physical danger and there are spiritual dangers. So everything, you know.
I understand that. In fact, I often tell people that driving on the 401 in the winter outside of Toronto is more dangerous than coming to Shiloh.
Probably. Absolutely.